Hello, great morning, great afternoon, great evening, wherever this conversation finds you. I am Travis Gray, and today we are transforming with our guest, Scott Shute. Scott is a former LinkedIn executive as VP of Customer Operations and a most recent role as the head of Mindfulness and Compassion programs. Scott is at the intersection of workplace and ancient wisdom traditions, perfect for the transpersonal psychology informed podcast that is this one, Gray Transforms. He blends his experience as a Silicon Valley executive with his lifelong practice and passion as a wisdom seeker and teacher. He has been a pioneer in creating workplace mindfulness programs and advancing the discussion around compassion in the workplace. He is also the founder of Changing Work, which is created to foster a deeper sense of connection and purpose amongst the teams in the workplace. His book, The Full Body Yes, won the 2022 Nautilus Book Award. He is a phenomenal speaker. I first met him at the Center for Spiritual Living in San Jose and was just moved by the things that he has to say. Thank you so much for being here, Scott. How are you?
My pleasure. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Just another day in paradise. We were just speaking. You're on your way to get onto a bike ride.
Yeah, after this, it's sunny here in San Jose, California, and after this, I'm hoping to go for a bike ride. So
Absolutely,
get
absolutely.
after
It,
it.
the time change gives us a little bit more time
Oh,
out to
it's
do.
my favorite, one of my favorite times of the year is when you get that extra hour. It's like, oh, yes, we get to actually do stuff after work.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. Scott, how did you begin your journey from like in LinkedIn executive and
Sure,
mindfulness? How did that intersection come about? How did
sure.
you get into mindfulness in the beginning of your work and then become this leader of mindfulness programs at LinkedIn?
Well, I've had these kind of two parts of my life. And really, they've always been there, but well defined. On the one hand, I've had this career. I got an engineering degree, went into sales, ended up at LinkedIn 25, 30 years later, led a big team there. So I've had that experience. But also, I've always been a spiritual seeker. I started a contemplation or meditation practice when I was 13. I've been teaching since I was in college. I'm a member of the clergy outside of work. And so it's been a huge part of my life, but one that I never talked about at work. In fact, the opposite, right? You just keep that to yourself. But I got to LinkedIn, whatever, a decade ago and realized it's such an open place. In fact, our CEO at the time was talking about his own meditation practice using Headspace. He was talking about compassion in leadership and in the world. And it's a place where it just gave me this, kind of umbrella of safety to be more and more of who I really am. And so I started by leading one meditation, on a Thursday afternoon at 4:30. It's hilarious. That first time there was one other guy there. I'm sure that dude was just as terrified as I was. I never saw him again. But the next week there were three, and then there were five, and then it kind of grew and became a regular thing. And eventually I raised my hand to be the executive sponsor of our mindfulness program. We didn't really have one, so we created one, myself and a bunch of other volunteers, and did that for 3 or 4 years. And then our CEO gave the commencement address at Wharton, right? Very buttoned down Wharton 4 or 5 years ago. And he talked about compassion, right? And the next day he's on TV, and this is all the reporters want to talk about on Good Morning America is compassion in business, compassion in leadership. And he got home and I was thinking, all right, well, dude, you just told our 15,000 employees that compassion was the most important thing that they could do. We're not really doing anything about it. And so I made a pitch to him because I'm an ops guy, right? I spent my whole career in ops. I can help operationalize compassion. So I made a pitch to him, and together we created this role as the head of mindfulness and compassion programs. My mission or my vision is to change work from the inside out. And then the mission or the how is by mainstreaming mindfulness and by operationalizing compassion. And that remains my role today, even though, I left LinkedIn a year and a half ago.
Wow, that's so beautiful to operationalize compassion,
Yeah.
mindfulness. within an organization like LinkedIn in the heart of Silicon Valley, to have the opportunity to do something like that seems so rare.
Absolutely, absolutely. There are a few people here and there who have, mindfulness positions, places like people at places like Google and Intel and Genentech and others, but they come and go. They come and go with the wind and the personalities and the budgets. It is very rare, and also it's becoming more mainstream all the time about how we think about it.
Yeah, I think that the Silicon Valley company cultures, they have at least maybe pre-pandemic, they had invested a lot of money, a lot of organizational power and resources into developing culture, but it is seemingly counterintuitive that LinkedIn, a company that is focused on helping people connect to the job market and this very suit and tie sort of idea, it is seemingly counterintuitive that they would focus so much on compassion and mindfulness. It's really great to hear that you said the CEO of LinkedIn made that address at a graduate university to speak about the importance of compassion, and then you had this opportunity to invite that into the workplace.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's
Well,
awesome.
our mission essentially, to paraphrase, is connect everyone and help make them more successful. And the connecting everyone, this is what compassion's all about. Mindfulness is an individual sport, right? And each of us is a completely unique experience when we close our eyes and go inwardly. But compassion is how we then interact with each other, how we interact with each other as teammates or as employees, how we interact with our customers, how we interact with our shareholders, how we interact with everybody around us. So being able to operate in a compassionate way, I feel like this is actually what builds better businesses, more successful businesses. It's not just to do because it feels good, it does that too. It actually makes the business more successful.
How do you think that it does that? What exactly is the operationalizing procedure
Yeah,
to integrating compassion amongst teams that
sure.
makes the actual business work better?
To really simplify it, I think it's when we solve for the we instead of the me. And at its most simple level, you think about your relationship, your primary relationship. Now, if you said the goal of my relationship is I want to be as happy as possible in my relationship. So how do you solve for that? If you said, okay, well, for me to be as happy as possible in this relationship, I want to get what I want every single time. I should get what I want. Well, now think about it, right? And put it in real terms. Like if you got what you wanted every single time with this other person, does that really make you the happiest? Probably you're not going to be in that relationship for very long, right? And so we learn in a relationship that when we create a balance between the two of us, that's probably the best chance for both of us to be the happiest.
Right.
Okay, well, you think about a company. A company often gets pulled into the quarterly earnings cycle and is balancing towards shareholders, right? How do we make as much money as possible? And everybody else is kind of along for the ride. But turns out the most compassionate organizations are the ones who create a balance. They create a balance for all of the stakeholders because all the stakeholders are people. Yes, the shareholders too. Those are people who gave you money, to put in your care to have a return back on it. So yes, we want to have a good business model, but for the employees, we want there to be a balance. We want to create a great environment for the employees so they can do their best work. And think about that. When employees do their best work, the company is going to be more successful. And for customers, we want there to be great value that we're providing for customers to solve customers' problems and meet their needs. Well, if we think about that, if we're really doing a great job of that, we're going to be a successful business. So the team that wrote Terms of Endearment, the book Firms of Endearment about 20 years ago, and later Conscious Capitalism, Raj Sisodia and his team, did the research that found that companies who actually do a good job of operating like this, they create a balance of all these stakeholders, they're actually 14 times more profitable than the S&P, 1,400% more profitable than the S&P average. So the challenge is when we operate from a quarterly short-term perspective and we're only thinking about money, we actually lose out on thinking about these other things, and that's a shame. So what I'm trying to do is bring that back to the forefront of how do we solve for the whole? How do we make it great for all of us? Because that will make it great for us as individuals too.
Yeah, I love that concept of conscious capitalism, because that is the sustainability of the emotional health of that organization, of that business. If you're going to actually take care of your people and balance the workflow, balance the needs, balance the wants of everyone involved, it makes sense to a lot of people that I work with, a lot of people that are probably watching this conversation with the two of us. It makes a lot of sense, but why doesn't it make sense to a variety of organizations that are just about the bottom dollar?
Sure. Well, it goes back to the history of how we've worked, right? This whole thing is relatively new. If we think about the history of work going back into the days of kings and slaves or landowners and serfs, the management style was essentially command and control. I told you to do it, just do it. Don't question me, right? And that management style lasted for thousands of years until fairly recently, right? We went from the agrarian age into the industrial age. In the industrial age, you might imagine a giant factory where humans were just literally just kind of a cog in the machine and seen as replaceable, really. But we've evolved now. Most companies, most of the world is in the information age, the information economy. And in the information economy, what's really clear is that humans, or our employees, are by far the biggest resource that a company has. And you've seen in the last couple of years that humans are making different choices about how to work, right? During the pandemic, lots of people are reevaluating this model of I trade my time for money, and they want something more. You know, the latest thing I saw, 9 out of 10 Americans say that they would work for less money to have more meaning. Okay, so all this leads us to, the best companies now are figuring out this conscious leadership through how do we make the environment great for our employees so that we can, do better. Your question is, why aren't we there yet? Well, we have thousands and thousands of years of inertia, of history, of managing in this way. We have this, this beholdenness to the quarterly review, the quarterly cycle. This is what Wall Street looks at. So we have been focused for the last 100 years on the quarterly cycle. And then there's something bigger at play. Companies are collections of people, right? Now, if you think about our own habits, for most things, we already know the answer, right? As an example, for our own health, we know that broccoli is better for us than potato chips. We know that eating a lean diet is better for us than eating a fatty diet. But it's still really, really hard. It's really, really hard to put in place, right? Why? Because potato chips give me instant gratification and broccoli doesn't make me feel better until later. In the exact same way, it's so much easier to be a command and control manager. Just do it. I told you to do it. It's so much harder to be a conscious manager, a compassionate manager. You're better at it if you do it. It's just harder. It's easier to have the knee-jerk reaction to the quarterly earnings than it is to stand up to the street and say, look, we're invested for the long haul for our employees, the long haul for our customers. And so here's where we're at. We think it's going to be better over time, regardless of what this quarter says.
Yeah.
So it goes back to our human nature.
Yeah, our human nature, and I do recognize that people are willing to give up their current jobs for more connection, purpose, meaning in their lives, in their workplace. As a manager of a team or a manager of an operation, of an organization, doesn't that person want to also be a part of a community, a part of a workplace? You're spending so much time at work. You're
Mm.
spending 40 hours a week, probably more than 50% of your life is on work.
Sure.
Don't you want to enjoy the meaning, the connection, the purpose that you have with the
Right.
people around you? It does only make sense, but there is this age old focus on the bottom dollar, on there's always this battle against inflation. There's always, every year must have a stronger percentage than the previous year, but then they're focused on sort of the wrong things. They're not focused
Mm.
on the well-being of the most important resource. As you said, the most important resource in the company is that salesperson, is that person
Mm.
operating the machine, operating the computer programs, operating whatever it is. That most important resource, if their well-being was overall improved, wouldn't that translate to more
Mm.
productivity, to more effectiveness as a business?
Mm. That's right. That's right. We get into these patterns and it's hard to get out.
Yeah. So I teach in an MBA program at my university, Sophia University. So I'm teaching a variety of students. Typically, they are from China. We have a lot of visa students from several different countries, but a majority of the student body in this MBA program at my university is from China. So they are coming from their other countries, their home countries, to America to join an MBA program in the heart of Silicon Valley, so that they can become a part of a new startup, or they can be hired by Google. Maybe they'll get an opportunity to get their visa picked up and be able to stay for the long haul. To have a work visa, to improve in this area of Silicon Valley. So they're MBA students, a Master's of Business Administration, and I teach positive psychology, personality and motivation, these courses, and we are bringing in a lot of mindfulness, a lot of meditation exercises, a lot of experiential work into the classroom that is maybe very abnormal for this sort of program at other unconventional teaching models, or more mainstream teaching models outside of Sophia University, which integrates this transpersonal psychology perspective and lens into the teaching. And so what is it that an MBA student in this program, what could they take from our conversation? What could they take from the mindfulness and integrating this into their business? How could they be a part of that changing workplace when they
Sure.
get picked up by these Silicon Valley companies?
Sure. One of my favorite quotes is from Rumi, 13th century poet. He said, and spiritual master, he said, "Yesterday I was clever and I tried to change the world, but today I'm wise and I'm working on changing myself." So, in other words, it all starts with each one of us, regardless of the environment or the company culture or the culture at large that we live in. It starts with us from the inside out. So, if we want change, it's up to us to drive that change. And so, what does that change look like? Well, it means being able, in whatever my sphere of influence is, whether I'm an individual contributor or the CEO, to use that sphere of influence in the way that you want the world to be. So if you want conscious business in the world, operate yourself in a conscious way. And that might just mean in a quiet way, you're doing your work in a way of conscious business. But it could be being a proponent for it. It could be being an advocate, in your workplace. Um, and then what does that even mean, right? So this is where whole books, whole lifetimes have been written about how to do this work. And this is kind of what I'm up to in my latest venture of trying to operationalize compassion. Right, the book itself, I call it a fire starter. I tell all these stories, get people excited about it, but then I want to answer the question, what do I do when I go back to my desk? And so that's part of what my work is too, of codifying these practices to say, here's what you can do as a team, really simple practices. Here's what you can do as an individual. Here's what you can do as a leader. Um, So I think, finding some of those, taking responsibility for it, and then living it at, fully charged.
Yeah, that's so awesome that you picked up a Rumi quote, because we have quoted Rumi in these courses. So I hope students are checking out this conversation and remembering Rumi. I wonder what it is about Rumi's. I mean, Rumi's poetry just like it can stretch to the farther reaches of any subject matter, and
For
so
sure.
it's really fascinating that that comes up in a business instruction in business and better business. The Rumi just pops up as quotes in mindfulness and things. That's really great. So working on yourself to be a better conscious person. If I am more mindful in myself, then I now have the resources to help others do the same. So I by leading in the way that I can lead myself, then I am giving others permission to do the same, and permission to be more than just cogs in the machine, but a community of a family, a community of
That's right.
people trying to work on this purposeful or this purpose driven project, whatever that might be. With LinkedIn, it is about connection. So I think that it's beautiful that changing work, this is this a business you created? This is a program that you created.
Yes. Well, right now it's one and the same. So I created this thing, changingwork.org.
Right.
And the first product, and only product right now, but hoping to grow quickly, is one for teams.
Yeah.
It's self-directed. It's a curation of 6 or 8 best practices that we were doing at LinkedIn and other places, which I think are, for me, answers the question: if you were trying to take the best practices we were doing at LinkedIn Culture and replicate them at other places in the easiest way possible, what would you do? This is the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I hope to have the next product we'll build is for managers. Here's my stats on managers, or the stats on managers. The number one factor in how we feel about work is our relationship with our manager. And how we feel about work is the number 2 factor in our overall happiness, second only to our mental well-being. Which means in our overall happiness, our relationship with our manager is probably one of the biggest factors in our lives, maybe even the most important relationship we have in our whole life around our happiness. Now, the other part of that is the average amount of time that a manager receives management training after they become a manager is 5.5 years. The average is 5.5 years the first time they get manager training, which means that's average. So there's a lot of people who are never receiving manager training. So I believe that if we really want to, one of the ways to make the world a better place is to give people better managers, to be better managers. So anyway, yes, we created this company called Changing Work to not only inspire people towards this idea of conscious business, but also to give them some very practical tools to put it into action.
Yeah. I hope that puts a lot of pressure on these MBA students to be better managers. I hope that puts the weight, the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. But a beautiful responsibility, the ability to respond to these situations that come up in the workplace with real resources, compassionate resources to connect people at a human level, a humanistic level, a human-centered level, so that things can run smoothly, so that they do have better relationships with their managers, with their coworkers. It's funny that managers have a seemingly negative connotation just as a word, just like management. It's like, oh, you have to speak to management, or oh man, management is here. Like everybody like run and clean, wash your hands, like management is here, it's funny that has such a negative connotation, but when it's leaders in the organization, when it's your friend in the organization,
Right.
they're not just my manager, they're my friend. You might hear people have a conversation like that too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's your manager. Are you
Yeah.
sure you should do that, or something along those lines? And oh
Sure.
no, it's okay. They're my friend too.
Yeah.
I have a relationship too with them that is personal, that is happily personal, that it fills me. It fills me to go to work. I'm spending all my time here. I actually feel good when I get here, so I do my job better. So the people around me are happy to be with me as doing the job as well. And that is a direct parallel too with therapy. When with the therapeutic, the number one reason that the therapeutic relationship works, or that therapy works, is the therapeutic relationship. That the client has a meaningful relationship to the therapist, and the style, or however that space is being held, that
Mm.
is the number one factor for them to get any kind of healing. And people have a hard time shopping around for therapists and shopping around for managers in some of the same way, I would imagine, when you're going to apply for jobs, you're trying to find the right place to work. Do you want to work with this manager? But maybe that manager word as a negative connotation, maybe it better replaced as a leader, and then it
Mm.
also maybe invites that you could do the same, that you could also be a leader. This is a great time to let the tribe know about the Gray Transforms website, graytransforms.com. This is a great place to go to check out all the links to the podcast. It's a great place to support the podcast, to support the channel. You can get a Gray Transforms t-shirt with a transegoic gnosis symbol for transformation on the back. You can get a Gray Transforms bullet journal. This is a simple tool, but this is a tool for mastery. You can get stickers. You can get a Gray Transforms mug. So you can drink great tea in your Gray Transforms mug while you are taking notes in your Gray Transforms bullet journal, while you are listening to high-level transformative conversations on the Gray Transforms podcast. So comment, like, share, subscribe, follow, and together this tribe is moving humanity forward. Let's get back to this conversation.
That's right.
Yeah.
We manage things, we lead people.
Yeah. So you in your LinkedIn profile, I saw that you help exceptional leaders build exceptional teams.
Mm.
What to you is an exceptional leader? What are the qualities of an exceptional leader, or a manager, or somebody that is running a
Sure. So they're good at all parts of their job, both the managing and the leading. They are good at they have to have some credibility in whatever the technical part of their job is, whether they're an HR person or an engineer or a finance or a salesperson. You have to be good at your job to earn people's respect. And probably, you move up through the ranks because you're good at the function. But exceptional people leaders are the exceptional people leaders, right? They're focused on leading. So what is leading? Well, it's one definition I like is inspiration towards a common goal, right? Are they inspiring? Your explanation or description of, oh, when you talk about them, does everybody run and go and they groan, or do they gravitate towards them? Like, oh, I'm glad they're here. Great, let's go talk. So exceptional leaders, some of the characteristics, how do they get there? How do they get that inspiration? I find that many of them are articulate. They're good at storytelling. They're good at connecting the dots between the work that we're doing and the high level vision of what we're trying to achieve. I find that they really powerful people leaders have a little bit of vulnerability, right? They don't pretend to be perfect, right? Because everybody knows they're not, because they're human just like we are. And so when we look up to someone, we can see ourselves in them, right? This is the beauty, right? They're not something separate. They're just maybe the best ones are like better versions of us, right? We can see ourselves in them and we aspire to be like them. Those are the people who really get it. And beyond those qualities, they truly care about what they're doing. They care about the people who are around them, and they have a humility, right? This is not about the command and the control. I'm better than everybody else. This is like, no, I'm like everybody else. I have a certain skill set that allows me to do this role, but I'm one of you, right? We're in this together. So inspiration towards a common goal and all those things help.
I love that. And I'm sure others watching this conversation can see how inspiring you are. I could imagine that in the workplace, oh, Scott is here. We're excited that Scott showed up. So that means we're going to do some team building activities. We're going to connect. We're going to discover more of why we are purpose driven. What is our mission and meaning here? It's just going to liven us more for the next few weeks, few months until Scott is back to train us again. And I love that. That's really great. And I'm sure that I'm sure that you've had great examples of executive leaders, of exceptional leaders in your, and you mentioned one. You said CEO of LinkedIn. He gave that address. What are some examples of people that you've really looked up to as leaders?
Sure. There's the typical ones, the ones at work. I'm going to point out a not typical one.
Hmm.
So I think so as an example, my father, I believe, was a great leader. My father was a farmer, right, on a mid-sized farm in Kansas. But he had the respect of the neighbors, he had respect of the farmhands, he had the respect of people in the community. So, when he passed away, I got to hear the eulogy. I got to hear people come up to me and talk about the impact that my dad had made. He never would have said, that he was a leader or identified with being a leader, but people gravitated towards him in that way. And so in a similar way, one person I point out is my friend Tom. So Tom is a blue collar guy, right? He essentially runs a janitorial services small company. He has maybe a couple hired guys. They clean carpets. They do janitorial work. They do odd jobs like that. But Tom is the guy where if one of those customers is having an issue, there's just something about Tom where they seek him out and they feel like they want to tell him their story. And he's always there with a deep listening ear and something wise to say on the back end. And I think this is really powerful because Tom leads by example. He doesn't lead by title. He doesn't lead by authority. He leads by example. And he shows up in such an incredible and powerful way. And so when I think about your question about what could these students do? What can any of us do when we go back to our desk? It's just to be that way. And that starts from the inside out. That starts with our own personal practice and building ourselves and our strength from within.
Yeah. Yeah, it does start from within. It is intrinsically motivated. It's because we want to be better within ourselves that we are able to have the sort of impact and aura and something that pushes from the inside out to infect, maybe a better word than infect, to bring people in, to be inclusive of others and include them in this potent desire for just giving back to each other, being mindful with each other, being treating each other with compassion. So this book, A Full Body Yes, you won a 2022, so just last year, you won a Nautilus Book Award. That is awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's
I
so
appreciate
exciting.
it.
I love that.
It's
Yeah.
very, very validating as an author to have people who are critics read it and love it as well. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So this book, The Full Body Yes, change your work and your world from the inside out, just exactly what we were talking about. But I love the title of this. I love how you have spoken about it in other times when I've seen you speak. The Full Body Yes, this is not just a book, it's an experience. It is to experience this full body yes. Can you tell us more about what is the full body yes?
sure. The full body yes is when we are fully aligned, when we know, right? And I'm sure everybody has this times in our lives when we don't know, right? We're trying to make a decision, we're a mess. Should it be A or B? And the mind is all over the place. We don't know. And then sometimes things happen with such clarity. You just know for sure. Oh, and this often happens when the situation is more poignant, right? Like, should I leave this relationship or stay? Should I leave this job or stay? Should I go to this school or that school? But the truth is, it's happening all the time. When you, in the morning, you go to have breakfast. Okay, should I have the eggs or the cereal? And you just know, it's like, oh, I'm going to have the eggs. Like, that's also a full body yes. But it's so much more powerful when it follows the struggle. When we've been struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling to understand which way to go or understand what's right for us, but then we just know, we have clarity. To me, that's the most powerful part of the full body yes.
Yeah.
One of the, sometimes people ask, what is a technique? And there's lots of techniques to get there. But one simple one I like is a somatic technique, a body technique. Imagine you're choosing between A and B. In fact, if you want to play at home, we can do it right now. This will take 1 minute. So pick a choice you have to make in your life and be really clear. One thing is A and another thing is B, right? Everybody have something? You're choosing between A and B. All right, let's do it. So first, you can close your eyes if you like, but imagine you are choice A. You've chosen choice A. This is your life, right? Get a sense of how that feels in your body. Maybe let it play out in your mind. You've chosen this for the rest of your life and all the things that happen after this. How does that feel? Okay, now just take a deep breath in and out and let that go. Let it go. Maybe think of a pink giraffe. All right, that was just a palate cleanser. Now think about choice B, right? Really think about it. This is your life. You've chosen choice B. You are a person with choice B in your life. Now, how does that feel? And imagine it, fast forward your life. All the rest of your life, you'll have choice B as part of who you are. And just get a real sense in your body of how that feels. Okay, that's it. Now come back to our discussion. Every time, and actually just ask yourself, was this valuable? Did one or the other, make sense? I find for me that almost every time there's something of value, and a lot of the time it's super clear, like the body already knows.
Yeah. It was super clear for me between A and B. And
Yeah.
I think that this is an awesome way that I've never thought about before. I've never experienced this before. So it's a very clear way to have an embodied sense of the evidence of what is that right answer. What is the embodied evidence? Is that full body yes, or that maybe that full body no? To decide between the two. So what an exceptional gift to the listeners of this podcast to really think about that in many different decisive areas of their lives. A or B, what is really the full body yes? That's a great mindfulness exercise. So this full body yes, I sensed like this. Not that I sensed. It's clear that the emotional impact that you have connected to the decision or that thing that you're trying to create, the thing you're trying to move towards, that emotional connection to it is such such a potent and important aspect that is not it's not always so tangible. It's not the material thing like, this looks good on paper, but do I feel it intrinsically? Do I feel that
Mm,
embodied evidence of the full bodied yes? It was super clear for me between A and B.
yeah.
And I think that this is an awesome way that I've never thought about before. I've never experienced this before. So it's a very clear way to have an embodied sense of the evidence of what is that right answer. What is
Yeah.
the embodied evidence? Is that full body yes, or that maybe that full body no?
Yeah.
To decide between the two. So what an exceptional gift to the listeners of this podcast to really think about that in many different decisive areas of their lives. A or B, what is really the full body yes? That's a great mindfulness exercise. So this full body yes, I sensed like this. Not that I sensed. It's clear that the emotional impact that you have connected to the decision or that thing that you're trying to create, the thing you're trying to move towards, that emotional connection to it is such a potent and important aspect that is not it's not always so tangible. It's not the material thing like, this looks good on paper, but do I feel it intrinsically? Do I feel that
Mm.
embodied evidence of the full bodied yes? So what is how important what is the reason, or how important is the emotional content in connection to the full bodied yes?
It's an interesting one. I actually think emotion is part of what gets in the way.
Mm,
Right. So here's my mental model for how this works, for how the world works.
okay.
So I am Scott, and Scott is made up of, it's the personality of Scott, which is the body, so all things physical, my emotions, and my mind. And those three things make up the personality of Scott. But I believe in my structure of how this works that there's something deeper than that, which is my true identity, right? My essence, energy, whatever you want to call it. I would call it soul. And soul in my model is a divine spark. In other words, literally a spark, an atom of the divine. And so when I tune in to that consciousness as soul, I'm tuning into the divine. I'm tuning into the part that knows. Right? So I actually have to let go of emotion. I have to let go of mind. I have to let go of my physical sensations and say, at essence, what wants to happen here? And then the mind will tell you all kinds of stories about that. So the mind is the yeah but, well yeah but, and the emotions are there too. There's things I really really want in my life, but maybe those are right and maybe they're not right. So for me, it's that mindfulness work, which is, or whatever you want to call it, that tuning to myself at essence, and then it's asking the question to say, what does that part of me want?
Wow, that is powerful. Definitely not the answer that I expected. So what you're saying is that maybe at times, maybe unconsciously, we don't realize how often our emotions get in the way, and
Absolutely.
definitely understand that to be true. Our emotions can get in the way, but the emotions that get in the way seem to be like our thinking mind, our yeah but, yes but mind, but getting in attunement to our soul or our self, capital S, that true essence of us. It, is that not coming up as an emotional experience? My emotions of that. How do you describe the experience of the full body yes without emotions?
I think it's the almost the absence of emotion. It's a peace,
Mm,
right? Things have, so it's like a snow globe that has been stirred up
mm,
is before, and when it's settled, like you put that snow globe down on a table and everything's settled, and you have the clarity to see what's inside, you know, the Golden Gate Bridge or whatever is inside the snow globe, the Christmas tree. When you have that absolute clarity, that's the full body yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes with this just knowingness. You feel it in your body, you feel it in your emotions, because you're not all stirred up anymore. It's just like, oh yeah, I get it. I'm at peace with that. It's like a peace.
Yeah.
So I think of it kind of like this. I'm watching my daughter. My daughter is a junior in college, and she's applying for all these different internships, summer internships for next summer, and it's been stressful. There's things she really wants, right? And then there's things that don't happen and things that do happen. And I kind of live my life with this belief that life is happening for us, not life is happening to us, right? This is one evolution that we go through. Well, imagine if you had this relationship with the divine where you could see what was happening and you knew without a doubt that it was happening for you, how much different it would feel. So as an example, I apply for this job. Oh my God, it's my dream job. It's a job I've always wanted. And I put so much meaning into it, right? I've been training my whole life for this job. I applied for the job. I love the manager. I love the salary. I love everything is perfect, right? This is emotion and mind. But if I don't get the job, am I crushed? Or am I floating along with the universe to say, actually, if we believe that life is happening for us, if we could see it from that perspective and say, actually, wow, I didn't get that job. That's surprising, but it must be for a reason. It must be because something else is going to happen that's better for me spiritually. Now, this is the distinction. It might not be better for me physically or financially or emotionally, but it's better for me spiritually. And that's where the full body yes comes from. It's from that deep knowing that, this is the quote, right path, the one that is the middle way.
Yeah, I love that. That is like the emotions are murking up the water, or the snow globe. All those snowflakes. The emotions are sort of making it unclear what is the yes or the no. The emotions is what we're doing when we're going back and forth between decisions. But the full body yes is the clarity, the peace, the clear waters, the clear snow globe, the settled at rest peace that is of course. Of course I would move this direction.
I'll give you an example. They're talking about the book. I've known deep in me that I would write a book. I've known it since I was in 9th grade, since I was 14 years old in my English teacher, Mrs. Sawyer's class. She turned me on to writing, and I always knew I would write a book. 14, I'm 53. That was a long time in between. Right. So all this time it's like, oh, am I going to write a book? And I had kind of this intention, but it was never time. It never felt right. And then in December of 2019, I'm riding in the car with my friend. We're coming back from an event and he's driving. I'm in the passenger seat and he gets this funny look on his face. And then he turns to me and he says, the universe has told me to tell you it's time to write your book. And we both just laughed. It was like, that's hilarious, But then I checked. I kind of put my hand on my heart and I kind of closed my eyes and went inside. And it was just true. Like it just had this ringing through all parts of me. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. Everything about that is right. And then when it came time to write the book, it was April of 2020. We'd all been sent home because of COVID. And I essentially traded commuting time for writing time, and the book just came out. It was effortless. Why? Because it was exactly the right time in my life. If I'd tried to write it 5 months or 5 years before, it would not have been so effortless. And this is the thing. I think life can be a lot more effortless if we're in tune, if we have that full body yes.
I love that. Thank you so much, Scott. This is such a wonderful conversation. There's a variety of people, the MBA students that I teach, or graduate students or other people in their workplace trying to make a difference in their workplace, trying to improve their own lives, trying to figure out between decisions, trying to find their full body yes. This book is amazing. It's not just a book, an experience. This conversation, not just a conversation, an experience. Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate it. Where can people continue to connect with you, work you're doing, maybe that next book?
Sure. Follow me on LinkedIn for daily stuff. You can find me at my website at scottshute.com. And if you're out in the world working and you want to bring this to your company, check out changingwork.org, and we might partner together there. And
Awesome.
Also, just feel free to reach out, scott@scottshute.com. I love hearing from people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott. Really appreciate this conversation.
My pleasure.
Woo! Scott Shute, the full body, yes. Change your work and your world from the inside out. If you need to find your full body yes, which I would suggest that you need to find your full body yes. You need to know where your full body yes is. And this conversation will show you. This conversation, Scott Shute will help you find your full body yes. Check out the book. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Share this conversation with somebody that is a leader. If you are a leader, you need to watch this. If you plan on being a leader in your workplace, in your life, you need to know your full body yes. So together we can be moving humanity forward.